Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking an absolute real-life medical mystery, and this one actually played out right on the open ocean. Picture this. You've got a luxury cruise ship, the Dutch-flagged MV Hantavirus, sailing along. Passengers are having the time of their lives on vacation. But then, out of nowhere, what was supposed to be this relaxing, scenic journey transforms into a high-stakes, multi-country global health crisis involving a really rare and really deadly pathogen.
27%. That is the terrifying case fatality ratio of the outbreak we're diving into today. Out of just 11 reported cases linked to this single ship, 3 people have died. When a severe respiratory illness strikes a totally closed environment, like a cruise ship out at sea, every single second counts, and the international medical community literally had to mobilize overnight.
Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly does a virus that is almost exclusively found in rural forests and dusty barns end up causing a massive evacuation on a luxury ship in the middle of the sea? Well, to figure that out, we need to follow the epidemiological breadcrumbs left behind by the virus, the passengers, and the global health authorities.
All right, Section 1. The cruise ship outbreak.
So, as of May 13th, 2026, here's exactly where the investigation stands. We've got 8 laboratory-confirmed cases resulting in 2 deaths, 2 probable cases with 1 death, and 1 case that's currently inconclusive. Now, it's really important to remember these aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are passengers with an average age of 65, which makes them incredibly vulnerable. And because of travel, they are now scattered all over the globe. The confirmed cases actually include repatriated folks in France and Spain, while that 1 inconclusive case, that's a high-risk passenger back in the U.S. who is currently undergoing retesting.
The sheer speed of this escalation is truly something to behold. On April 24th, a few passengers disembarked in St. Helena. By May 2nd, the UK had already notified the WHO of a severe respiratory cluster. Just 4 days after that, Dutch medical workers had to physically board the ship off the coast of Cabo Verde just to monitor the crew. And finally, on May 10th in Tenerife, Spain, authorities launched a massive, highly coordinated operation to evacuate and repatriate the remaining passengers on specially arranged, non-commercial flights.
Moving right along to Section 2. Understanding the Andes virus.
So the culprit here causes a condition known as Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome, or HPS for short. It's a really severe, zoonotic viral disease. Usually, and I mean almost always, humans catch a hantavirus by coming into direct contact with the urine, feces, or saliva of infected rodents. Like when you're sweeping out an infested barn or working in rural fields. It is definitely not something you ever expect to catch on a high-end cruise.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the terrifying plot twist it reveals. Most hantaviruses only spread from rodents to humans. If you get it, it stops with you. You can't pass it to your family. But the lab results confirm that the ship was dealing with the Andes virus. Endemic to South America, the Andes strain is uniquely capable of human-to-human transmission. This incredibly rare trait is exactly what allowed the virus to jump from person to person within the tight indoor quarters of that ship.
And the way HPS hits your body is just brutal. It kicks off with typical flu-like symptoms, headaches, chills, some myalgia, but then it rapidly snowballs into sudden respiratory distress and hypotension. But here's the absolute nightmare scenario for contact tracers. The incubation period can range anywhere from 1 to 6 weeks, sometimes even up to 8 weeks. So a passenger could easily be exposed, travel all the way home, and not even show a single symptom for over a month.
Which brings us to Section 3, Tracing Patient 0.
To find the source of all this, scientists leaned on the power of modern genomic sequencing. They took the viral samples from the different patients, compared them, and found they were nearly identical. We're talking no more than 1 single nucleotide difference per individual. So what does that mean? It proves that this outbreak was not caused by a bunch of infected mice running around the buffet line. It almost certainly arose from 1 single zoonotic spillover event before the ship even set sail.
Piecing all these clues together, authorities developed a pretty solid working hypothesis. Since the Andes virus is endemic to the southern cone of the Americas, specifically parts of Argentina and Chile, investigators believe the very first patient picked up the infection prior to boarding. The likely culprit? Potential exposure to rodents during an ecotourism excursion on land, like birdwatching. Once they were on board, the close living quarters and shared indoor spaces practically acted like an incubator, creating the perfect storm for that super rare human-to-human spread.
All right, Section 4, the global health response.
Let's take a look at how you actually build a containment wall around a virus like this. The WHO had to coordinate a truly massive international effort. First up, tracing contacts across all the disembarkation ports and tracking down every flight the passengers took to get home. Second, they slapped a strict 42-day quarantine on all high-risk contacts. And why exactly 42 days? Well, because the virus's infectiousness peaks early, and honestly, pre-symptomatic transmission just cannot be completely ruled out yet. Finally, they safely evacuated the remaining passengers while completely isolating the ship itself.
The sheer aggressiveness of that containment protocol makes total sense when you realize this grim reality. There are no vaccines for HPS. None. And there are no approved antiviral treatments either. Drugs like ribavirin, which actually work okay on other types of hantaviruses, just haven't proven effective for HPS. This means patients have to rely entirely on rapid, intensive supportive care, stuff like mechanical ventilation, really careful fluid management, and in the most severe cases, dialysis or extracorporeal membrane oxygenation just to survive.
Now, to protect the frontline healthcare workers treating these patients, and don't forget the 25 crew members still sailing the essentially empty MD Hondius back to the Netherlands, strict infection control is absolutely paramount. We are talking single, well-ventilated isolation rooms, full-on personal protective equipment including respirators, and extreme airborne precautions during any aerosol-generating medical procedures.
And finally, Section 5, Assessing the Global Risk.
So the crucial point comes down to this official assessment right here from the WHO. They determined that while the risk for the elderly passengers stuck in that specific, confined cruise environment was moderate, the actual risk to the wider global population is firmly assessed as low.
The facts of this outbreak should definitely reassure you. The Andes virus just does not spread easily like the common cold or the flu. For human-to-human transmission to happen, it generally requires prolonged, really close indoor contact. Because authorities jumped on this and rapidly isolated suspected cases and quarantined the high-risk contacts, the chain of transmission is being aggressively broken. In fact, the WHO stated there's absolutely no need for travel or trade restrictions, no need for the general public to go get routine testing, and day-to-day routine tourism remains very, very low risk.
But while the specific outbreak looks like it's being successfully contained, it does leave us with a pretty massive lingering question. Think about it. This entire multinational health crisis likely kicked off just because a tourist went birdwatching in a rural habitat. As our love for ecotourism pushes us deeper and deeper into previously untouched wildlife areas, increasing our everyday contact with natural viral reservoirs, we really have to ask, are these rare zoonotic spillovers going to start becoming our new normal? It's definitely something public health officials are watching like a hawk and something we should all probably keep in the back of our minds the next time we venture out into the wild. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep learning.